Okay, let's jump right into this explainer, where we're going to completely decode non-GAAP financial measures. We're going to arm you with exactly what you need to know so you can walk into your certification exams totally confident. Look, if you've ever read a company's press release and wondered why the massive blockbuster numbers they're bragging about look entirely different from their official SEC filings, well, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're mastering exactly how these alternative numbers work, why they exist in the first place, and most importantly, how to spot the clever little tricks test writers love to use to trip you up. To make this super digestible, we're using a rule, risk, and regulation framework. We'll start with defining non-GAAP measures, then cover what they are not so you can avoid those exam traps, dive into the purpose and the risk behind the numbers, and wrap up with SEC Regulation G requirements. All right, Section 1. Let's lay down the groundwork by defining non-GAAP measures according to the SEC's official rulebook. So the crucial starting point is getting a firm grip on the SEC's baseline definition. A non-GAAP financial measure is basically a numerical measure of a company's historical or future financial performance, their position, or their cash flows that does something very specific. It actively modifies standard GAAP measures in one of two distinct directions. It either excludes amounts that GAAP normally requires you to include, or it includes amounts that GAAP normally tells you to exclude. It is a completely intentional departure from standard accounting. This beautifully illustrates the duality of the rule. Think of Direction 1 as exclusion. A company might exclude a really ugly, non-routine expense from their earnings, basically arguing it's just a one-time event. And, surprise, surprise, doing that usually makes their profits look a whole lot better. Then you have Direction 2, which is inclusion. A company might actually include development costs in their intangible assets, which is something GAAP usually forbids, so they can easily compare their financial position with international peers who use IFRS. Both of those scenarios are textbook non-GAAP measures. Moving right along to Section 2, what they are not. This is where we navigate those tricky exam traps. I want you to imagine you see this exact scenario sitting in front of you on test day. A company presents a standard current ratio and it's calculated entirely using pure GAAP-derived amounts. Is that ratio considered a non-GAAP measure? Take a quick second and lock in your answer. The definitive answer is no. Simply doing math with standard unadjusted GAAP numbers doesn't magically transform the result into a non-GAAP measure. If your raw ingredients are pure GAAP, the resulting ratio is really just a statistical measure. It falls entirely outside the SEC's definition. So here is a quick checklist of exceptions you should absolutely commit to memory. A measure is not non-GAAP if it's a ratio combining pure GAAP figures, like we just talked about. It's also exempt if it combines an operating measure with a GAAP measure, or if it's just combining operating measures together. And finally, if an item is explicitly reported just to satisfy a governmental or regulatory body requirement, it gets a free pass. But wait, here is the exact trap you really need to be on high alert for. Let's say a company presents a current ratio using GAAP current assets, but they decide to tweak the denominator. They adjust the current liabilities to exclude amounts that are required by GAAP. What happens then? Well, because even one tiny piece of that ratio is adjusted away from GAAP, the whole entire thing instantly becomes a non-GAAP measure. The purity is broken, and boom, the SEC rules immediately apply. Let's jump into Section 3, the purpose and the risk. This really digs into the behavioral reality behind why companies do this. There is this fascinating, nonstop tug-of-war between corporate management and regulators here. Management will claim they absolutely need these measures to supplement GAAP. They argue that really strict accounting rules actually obscure their true performance, and they just want to show the core economic reality of the business. But the SEC, they are terrified. Their big fear is that companies are using these so-called street earnings to inappropriately manage earnings, basically painting a highly deceptive picture that hides the true, often messy cost of doing business. You are going to see this exact tension play out with some very common metrics. You've got free cash flow, which is operating cash minus capital expenditures. You have EBIT, and of course, its big brother, EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. I mean, you've probably seen some tech startup release a notorious adjusted EBITDA to try and look profitable by stripping out all their capital structure and non-cash expenses, right? Then there are core earnings, excluding non-recurring items to focus purely on main operations. And finally, constant currency basis. These right here are the battlegrounds where management tries to tell their best story, and the SEC tries to make sure investors aren't getting scammed. And because of that severe risk of deception, the SEC steps in with some very authoritative rules. That brings us to Section 4, SEC Regulation G, or what I like to call the regulatory guardrails. I want you to think of Regulation G as your mandatory three-step compliance checklist. Step 1. Whenever a company uses a non-GAAP measure, they are required to also present the most directly comparable financial measure calculated under GAAP. Step 2. They have to provide a clear mathematical reconciliation between the two. And step 3, the entire presentation must be totally free of deception. That means no untrue statements and absolutely no omissions of material facts. I personally love to think of this reconciliation requirement like a mandatory translation dictionary. Look, if a company wants to invent its own metric, essentially speaking its own unique financial language to tell a better story, the SEC says, hey, that's fine. But they demand that the company provides a direct line-by-line translation back to the universal language of standard accounting reality, which is GAAP. You simply have to prove your math. Now, dial in and pay close attention here because these are massive, massive exam traps regarding specific disclosures. If you see EBIT or EBITDA on test day, you have to remember that the SEC dictates they must be reconciled specifically to net income. It is absolutely not appropriate to reconcile them to operating income. Do not fall for that. Furthermore, EBIT, EBITDA, and free cash flow must never, ever be presented on a per-share basis. That is a hard, unbreakable rule. The SEC also provides us with very clear interpretations of what they consider deception. Long story short, you can't cherry pick. It is highly deceptive to exclude bad, non-recurring expenses to boost your income while quietly keeping the good, non-recurring gains from that exact same period. You also cannot pretend that normal, everyday cash expenses required to run the business just don't exist. And you certainly cannot inconsistently change how you make your adjustments from one period to the next without explicitly disclosing and explaining exactly why you're doing it. Okay, here is a quick bonus exam tip that frequently trips people up. Adjusting for currency fluctuations to show a constant currency basis is officially classified as a non-GAAP measure. So if a company uses it to smooth out their exchange rates, they are still fully required to comply with Reg G. That means they have to show both the historical amounts and the constant currency amounts right side by side while thoroughly explaining their math. So, as you prep for your exams and eventually go out there to analyze real-world financial statements, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. When management hands you a slick, custom-built metric, are you actually looking through a clearer window into the company's true economic soul, or are you just staring into a much more flattering, cleverly distorted mirror? Always keep Regulation G in your toolkit, always check the reconciliation, and never take a non-GAAP number strictly at face value. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and best of luck with your studies.